The only reason that's working is because the economics are being taken away from the promoters.
I personally don't think, whether it's a bad thing, I don't think we'll ever see Tyson and AJ in a British ring ever again.
And I stand by what I stood by at the beginning of this Conor Benn situation. He's still failed 2 tests. We're still none the wiser on what the situation is.
So I did get Josh Taylor more money, and he knows that as well. That's why he secretly loves me.
I think Eddie is the archetypal showman.
When I saw him in the association, he was like, if the cameras were in here, I'd have strangled it. And I went, there he is. He gets called Hank. You know the split personality, me, myself, and I went, there he is.
Me, myself, and Irene.
I've been looking for you.
Welcome to episode 62 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. And this week, Sam Jones, following in from tradition of verbose guests, Carl Froch, Adam Catterall, and now the unassuming, quiet Sam Jones. Nice to see you, Sam.
How are you doing? Are you
Good.
okay?
Yeah, good. Thanks for coming in. Spence, last week it was brought to my attention, I think probably yours as well, because I think you probably responded to it, that Eddie Hearn has felt the necessity to take a swipe at talkSPORT. And I think it was on the back of a conversation had between you, myself and Johnny Nelson.
Yep.
And this expression that gets thrown around now, which is haters. Frank Warren uses it, Tyson Fury uses it, and Eddie Hearn has adopted it in his shtick. And it was about observations that have been made about Anthony Joshua and the Ngannou situation. Mm-hmm. This expression, hater, I don't know, I mean, it just seems like very lightweight thinking, but what's your view on it?
I think it's a lazy response, if I'm totally honest. I think that the word hater is a strong word for one. I can only assume that Eddie Hearn is throwing me into the mix with that because of the Conor Benn situation. Because if we're talking about Anthony Joshua, which he was referring to there, I've been Anthony Joshua's biggest supporter through the good times and through the bad. Exactly, you know that.
Just see your feet hanging out.
So
with your
why
heads
would
up his
he
arse?
say like the 3 biggest haters in boxing, Spencer Oliver, Simon Jordan and Johnny Nelson, off the back of one little thing, where I was supporting Joshua in that as well. So I can only assume that he's talking about the Conor Benn situation, and and I stand by what I stood by at the beginning of this Conor Benn situation. He's still failed 2 tests. We're still none the wiser on what the situation is. I know he's got a hearing this week, I believe. We're going to find out more then. But as it stands, I don't support drug cheese in boxing. So as it stands, he's failed 2 tests. We've been vocal about it. And if that qualifies me to be a hater, then so
do you think there's any fairness in the observation that because what Eddie's doing is taking the scenario where criticism isn't a bad thing as long as it's fair, right? If it's unfair criticism and bias, then it should be called out for what it is, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But what I saw Eddie say is, because I've made the observation, and I don't know what you think, Sam, that the thin-skinned nature of this world. I mean, obviously I was in football and I watched the arrogance and the egos in football because of the nature of the industry, and it was the national sport of the country, but it was never so prickly and never so sensitive. And Eddie talks about haters. It's any kind of criticism is called to be a hater. And then he says it's because this is a sport that's rather unique, which is these guys are going into rings, putting their lives at risk, and it's much more difficult for them to take criticism than it is in any other sports. Do you think that's a fair observation on his part?
It is, but in boxing, there's also a lot more access. Like, say after a footballer's had a bad performance, there's not a media outlet that's saying, "Oh, you had a crap game." Do you understand? In boxing, there is a lot of that. It's like directed at them. They're surrounded by loads of cameras and they have to respond.
You don't think that's the same in any other sport?
I think in boxing there is more access to the fighters than any other sport.
Yeah, I think the boxers though are quite sensitive today. As you know, like they put in a bad performance, you speak about the bad performance, then all of a sudden you're a hater. And I went, and that's a really strong word, because Simon's right in what he says, that you are allowed an opinion. You do have an opinion, and if I'm still boxing and I was getting that sort of criticism, I'm feeding off that. Because that's what you do. You feed off the criticism, and that hopefully brings out a better performance in yourself. But
I don't think people like criticism.
Nobody likes criticism.
Nobody likes criticism. But unfortunately, the world we live in, there are opinions, and I do think I've said it before. Like, we'll bring it back. I know we're going to speak about it later, but it's like predictions. You felt like Taylor could beat Jack Catterall.
Absolutely.
But Jack genuinely he doesn't care.
By the way, we've changed our opinion on that because of the weight.
Gone 180.
No, because of the weight. Because the fight. I said, if you've got to listen back to that interview, and we'll get onto it. I said if the fight is made at 147, or even at a catchweight 144 or something like that, I favour Taylor.
Yeah.
If the fight goes in at 140, and I stand by this now, I favour Catterall, and that's where
what
we're
I
at
mean
now.
is just simply, Simon has an opinion, you have an
Absolutely.
opinion, I have an opinion.
Yeah.
We all have opinions.
And as long as people can change their opinion, when the facts give you a different terminology, a different direction, then that's the essence of it. And I want to go back to the hater expression, because I actually think it's a mechanism to diminish people, right? It's like when I was younger, and I bring myself into conversation, when I first bought the football club, everyone used to say I was aggressive, I was arrogant, right? Rather than say, oh, he's strong-willed, he's confident, he's assertive, right? They'd rather say he's aggressive, because aggressive is diminishing language, right? It marginalizes your opinion, right? And if you're confident, you believe in yourself, because Christ, if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to believe in you, right?
Sure.
Then you're arrogant, right? It's diminishing language. So rather than say it's an opinion I don't like, they'll say you're a hater.
Yeah.
Because that means that your opinion has no validity, because you're coming from a position of hating something. So it doesn't matter what you see in front of your eyes, you're just going to piss all over it. And that's the position. But it isn't just the fighters. I can accept Eddie's arguments that it's a different dynamic for a fighter to walk into a ring because they're putting their lives at risk. Well, I don't think it's any different for rugby players that run on a pitch are getting hit by 18-stone players at full tilt, or NFL players. We don't hear them crying every time there's a critical observation. And it's also the promoters. The language is now being adopted by the promoters. If you say something about Saudi that Frank Warren doesn't like because it affects potentially his economic relationship with the Middle Eastern guys, you're a hater. And I think it's a really immature way to be.
I mean, Simon, it's an interesting one, because I think that conversation as well was surrounding the fact that Johnny Nelson was talking about the risk and reward, and it wasn't worth it for Anthony Joshua going in with Francis Ngannou. Now, I said on that same show, actually it is worth it, because what does he get off the back of it? He gets the undisputed fight, because that's what he's been promised. So, risk versus reward, the reward is he gets the undisputed fight. So, I was a supporter of that. So, I just found it strange that you throw that into the mix.
It's just a way of diminishing an argument. Basically, you take the argument and go, no, I won't deal with the argument. I won't deal with a point. I'll deal with a person. All right, so I won't play the game. I'll play the man. All right, so you're a hater. So that means whatever comes out of your mouth doesn't have any validity because you come from a position of disliking it from the outset, rather than say, let me deal with your point. Your point is that you don't think this is that, or you don't think this is that. Will never be the conversation. Right? But I find it perplexing, because this is a sport that's getting more and more intrigue and more interest. Yet I watch the football world, and I watch this world, and I think it's like watching children. It's like, I don't like what you've said, so you can't talk to me anymore. And I don't like what you've said, so you're a hater, so that I'm not going to deal with you anymore. Meanwhile, I'll use your platform to voice my opinions on whenever it suits me. I just think there has to be a more grown-up way of dealing with these things. But I don't think that if they want to make the observation that it's unfair comments, because it's never about the observation. It's always about the person. It's not about, when I was taking on Eddie for being a coward, for ducking the press conferences after the Conor Benn situation back in October or September of 2022, it was, I met Simon in Porto Banús and he had blonde hair. Has that got to do with the point I'm making? For crying out loud.
Don't forget about the earring either.
And the earrings that I didn't have since I was 14 years of age. I mean, what do you do with that nonsense? Anyway, not haters, just people with a different opinion.
Sure.
Sam, I know this is a slightly thorny area and you probably want to tiptoe your way through it, right? But Conor Benn and the hearing, I understand the hearing happened about a week, 10 days ago.
Yeah.
Where is that in the great scheme of things?
To be honest, I don't know too much. I've had a couple of chats with Conor, and from my understanding is the hearing's been done, and he's now
awaiting the outcome.
Yeah.
And is he awaiting the outcome? Is there? Was he present at the hearing?
I think it was done over Skype or Zoom.
Right, but was he there himself in terms of?
I believe so.
Right.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
And do you get a sense from him that he's got a feeling of confidence about the outcome?
Yeah, I think him and his whole team are very confident it's just going to be, that's going to be the end of it, and he can move on with his.
Because I think it's probably
career.
wise, isn't it, that he keeps himself beneath the radar a little bit at this moment in time. Because
it's just been dragging on a long time, hasn't it? It's been dragging on a long time, and listen, I think he could have handled things better. Other people could have handled things better, and I do think, I know, like Spencer, you've had a strong opinion on it, but I do think he has been. I gave this, Joe, as soon as it came out, I was like, he's cheated. As soon as it came out, I was like, all roads. But then you speak to him, and then you kind of understand he's throwing so much money. It would have been almost easier for him to say, I've took a a woman's tablet or something. Do you understand what I mean? It would have been easier for him to go down the route, but instead he's partnered with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds to fight this, and ultimately it just needs a draw. It needs ending one way or another. We all agree.
Well, of course, understand from our side.
Yeah,
you failed 2 tests.
Yeah.
The 2 tests still stand as they are.
Yeah.
I say so. Obviously, as a big outlet, we're going to talk about the situation, and the situation it was the way that it was handled, and they were stoking the fire in many ways, that you're blaming everyone else, but not looking at the root of the problem.
Do you think he's been badly, I think what Spencer will summarise it, do you think he's been badly advised?
In some aspects, yes. Right. Like the Piers Morgan show. Shouldn't have gone on the Piers Morgan show. That was a car crash. But what I'm saying, what he thinks is, and what other people on his side think, is that it's being spoken about more at him than to, listen, we're not going to start naming names because we'll be here all till Christmas talking about people that have failed tests. So he just feels that he's been attacked way more and treated differently way more than others. And I do believe that also.
Well, do you know why I think that is? And again, this is not a dig at anybody. I think Eddie hasn't helped with that. I think that Eddie was front and centre. No, not at all. I think Eddie's a master of his craft. Yeah. I think in the low rent space that boxing is at times, I think Eddie is the archetypal showman. You know, I listen to those IFL interviews where they're giving the sort of powder puff questions, and he comes out with all his wonderful little shtick, and it all gets sold. He makes the best fights, and he's in a position that he's in. But I look at it and think that the robustness of the media's position was because Eddie wouldn't stop this fight, wouldn't stand it down. And I think that's where it all started. And then people started to get into a narrative of, hang on a second, why are you picking on me? And there is an element of, you know, we can look back on Tyson Fury's situation, we look back on Povetkin, we can look back on Canelo Alvarez, all of these guys.
You'll be here till Christmas if you speak about guys that
but all of them served sentences, and all of them took their medicine to some extent. That's probably the wrong expression in this instance, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And basically, they've done their crime. They've done the crime, served the time, and it just went under the radar. But I think that with the Conor Benn situation, it was, and you're right in what you say. You know, in many ways, he's trying to prove his innocence. Yeah. And it was highly spoken about. But it was dealt so bad, Sam.
Yeah, I don't even think he denies that. No, but he doesn't.
No, he does. He knows that now.
You have to understand, he's a young kid.
Absolutely,
right? And you know him as well.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
He's a young kid, and he's a. I've never really got on with him, because at the time I used to wind him up about the Florian Marcus situation. I wanted him to fight Florian, but I just think he's a really good kid, and I hope one way or another it gets resolved this week, and everyone can try, because I'm sure everyone's tired of talking about it. And just going on to Eddie a second, he does get asked a bit more invasive questions than I believe most other promoters do get.
Well, he does now.
Yeah, he does. I do believe that with
he didn't
Eddie,
before,
but he handles it probably. He doesn't. To one thing, Eddie, he doesn't shy away from
interviews.
He's
a showman. But what he does do is he answers a different question than the one that was answered, that was asked, right? And then redirects, right? And it's incumbent upon them, and with due respect to whatever we may or may not be. When Eddie is being asked more difficult questions, now the other guys, the digital guys, the lazy slobs that take other people's content, misrepresent it and create controversy.
That's where the problem with talkSPORT
right. Absolutely. They're now asking more poignant questions. But the reasons why I ask you about Conor is not just because I want you to get you into a sort of position where you say something that you shouldn't. It's because you know that I spoke to Conor before Christmas. I've never relayed the contents of that conversation because I told him that I wouldn't.
It's a private chat, isn't it?
And it was a private conversation, and I'm not prepared to go against what I said, but I was staggered that Conor seemed to have so little advice around him at the time that was sensible, and even by his own admission, he's looking at it going, I'm looking back on things, and the decisions, choices I made were, I think, even staggering for him. And I'm interested because obviously there's a distinct possibility that once the appeal is out, that Conor will come and have a chat. Yeah. Because that conversation, I
think he's told yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
He wants
and I've
to
said to him, I wouldn't betray the confidences in the conversation. He can row his own boat. And come on when the appeal was being heard. Let's move on from Conor, and let's move on to a really great fight that you were implicitly involved in making, albeit Eddie Hearn says you cost.
AJ against Ngannou. No,
you cost yourself 200 grand more in terms of what Josh Taylor has to now get paid. Yeah. We had him in the studio last week, I think probably on the back end of a busy week, and it was a much more peaceful interaction between Josh and Jack Catterall.
Yes.
So this fight, you were instrumental in making it. How did you get it made?
I'll be honest with you. I've had to just go through so many hurdles. I've been in boxing nearly 10 years, right? This is genuinely the hardest thing I've ever been involved in, just to get. And I don't think it's not a case of Taylor being scared of Jack. he clearly isn't scared to fight anybody. He isn't. Josh Taylor's a great fighter. Whatever he thinks of me, whatever I think of him, or everything, he's a great fighter, and he's proven. He's completed boxing, right? But I just think Josh struggled to come to terms with the fact that my biggest payday now is Jack Catterall from Chorley. It sends his, can I swear?
Yeah, go ahead.
Boils his Simon. It really does boil his to think, I've worked this hard and my biggest night is now, and now my dance partner is Josh. Jack realises it, and I told Jack afterwards, and this is me being open and honest, in boxing, you need dance partners to create events.
It's historically, that's the way that it works. If you look at George Groves versus...
he was a nobody compared
George Groves
to Fox
versus
at the
Cole
time.
Fox. Yeah, but Groves, what he got in the first fight,
Yeah.
and the controversy that surrounded it, and so what he got paid in the second
Controversy
fight,
sells.
that was life-changing money in the second fight. The first fight, it wasn't. So, listen... When he looks back on this, Josh Taylor, he's going to be thankful that the controversy that was surrounding the first one.
I don't think he's going to be too thankful after the second fight.
Do you know what concerns me?
Economically,
Like,
he means.
How did it take 2 years to get this over the line again? I mean, that was a fight that should have happened really 6 months ago. 6 months after.
Jack was a little wasp over in there, and he was batting it away, and it.
But they could have gone pay-per-view with that straight away.
Of course, it could have been pay-per-view now. It's the fastest selling event in Leeds' first direct history. But what I'm saying is, it's made now, but it's took a long time to kind of, for Josh to be in that realisation where Steve Claggett's not paying you this money, who he was going to look to fight. All these, Florian Marku, good fight, but it's nowhere near as big as what this fight is. And it kind of shows itself. And I'm just so happy for Jack, not because the money aspect, because listen, you were a boxer, Spencer, you know better than I do. You're prize fighters, you want to box for a prize. Jack's getting very handsomely paid for it, as is Josh.
Why 140? Why 140? I mean, that is a crazy decision from Josh Taylor's point, I think. I think you agree with that, Simon, as well, don't you?
If Josh gets whooped in this fight, he can say, we'll do it again at 147.
But he called for it at 140.
I know, but he's then going to say to himself, I wanted it to be under the same things, but I can't make the weight, so I want to... But to be fair, Josh said at the Teofimo Lopez fight, this is the best I've ever made 140. I want to be a career 140. That's what he's been saying now. He wants to be a career 140. And I just said to Josh, the great champion that he was, don't make excuses. There will be no excuses from Jackson.
Yeah,
if Josh beats Jack, Josh deserves his FU moment to everybody. I told you, I had a bad night, I can beat Jack. And Jack, he'll never get his 4-belt moment again. He'll never get that back again. But it's going to be a special night, and that's the reason why I believe the whole country, I won't say the world because I'll get stick for that, the whole country is kind of captivated for this fight.
Well, it's the injustice of the first fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was the same with Foch and Groves because there was an injustice. I mean, obviously, when you look back on the Foch-Groves fight and you look at Howard Foster's decision, you start to see the more reasons behind it. But in the Catterall-Taylor fight, I think with due respect to Josh, and I said it to Josh, when I saw him last, I categoric that I think Jack Catterall won that fight. Most people did, and he's been dragged kicking and screaming there because he doesn't want to be. Not because I think he's worried about Jack Catterall.
Fault, by the way.
As far as he's concerned, it's done business.
Yeah.
But the fact that the realization that, do you think if Josh had beaten Teofimo Lopez, he would have fought Jack?
That's a great
Because he said...
I don't really think so, no.
He said he would to me because he got all shitty with me about 6 months ago when I talked to him about, are you going to fight Jack Catterall? Yes. Are you going to fight Jack Catterall? When are you going to fight him? And he got all nasty and he was quite calm on when I saw him on Wednesday, Thursday last week.
He came in peace with teddy bears. Again. Yeah, he came in peace with teddy bears. I think it's because he may have done Simon, but he might have thought to himself, I'm a champion now.
Yeah.
Maybe I can... He would look as what you can tell me, Jack. His biggest fight, and I do still think even if he beat Lopez, his biggest fight is going to be Jack Catterall.
Lopez, he's looking at Devin Haney and those sort of people. The reason that he's going over this is the biggest fight for him
and the biggest
at his stage of his career, and that's why he's doing
it.
But
the fact that he also lost to Lopez, and the belt's gone with it, means that there's a different conversation economically, isn't there? Because if it had been sat at the table as the champion of the world with the belts or belt,
we still had to give him his A-side privileges, Simon.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. And that goes with the territory because it's part of the industry.
Yeah.
But the economic discussions might have been a bit different.
Yeah, maybe.
And now it's a more parity, I suspect, in the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, Josh, to his credit, I'll tell you quickly, without boring you to death, how it kind of got made. Josh told Matchroom a figure, what he wanted. Josh's lawyer, Tom Grant, told him the figure. Matchroom, bit too much money. Jack, little bit too much money. But because my relationship is genuinely, there's a stick for this, but my relationship is good with Frank Smith and Eddie, they said, listen, if it's worth it, like go and kind of shop around. And to his credit, Ben Shalom, he was involved in the first fight. He wanted to do the fight. And it was done relatively quickly. Like, it was all agreed relatively quickly. To his credit, Ben. So I know people think I give Ben stick, probably a little bit here and there. But yeah, Ben did it very well. It was all done. And then Matchroom came at the final hour and said, we can see how big this fight is. We're matching it. And it got done. And all that ended up happening is Josh ended up getting more dough. And we got the figure that we originally asked for 3 months ago. So I did get Josh Taylor more money. And he knows that as well. That's why he secretly loves me.
Are you, I'm sure that he'll dispute that version of events. Are you, I don't want to sound negative, but are you slightly disappointed that you couldn't have got a bigger stadium? Because this would have sold, is it simply the timing of year?
I said it, Simon. I told them. And
why didn't they go bigger?
Listen, I think it's because neutral venues, as you can see, sometimes, like the Wood Warrington fight, that was a massive fight, but it took a while to kind of find it. I think it eventually sold out. Yeah. But because of when they were kind of going at each other, it was like, gentlemen, these two, genuinely, I mean this when I say this, they did it in the DAZN studio, on site. They wanted to fight each other on site. Josh can hold it in and he can play this thing, because when the camera's off, trust me, Simon, he wanted to strangle me. And he told me, he goes, if there weren't cameras here, I'd strangle. And I went, there he is. That's the guy we've been hunting for. That's the guy we've got in, and
I think by the time he come into talkSPORT, I think they'd had 2 hard days of it then. They were a little bit drained, a little bit flat.
Originally, they were meant to meet each other first on Simon and Jim's show. And I said, if that happens, trust me, they're rolling about on the floor. Because Josh gave Jack a colouring book, and this is on the second day, and Jack gave him a bit of a clip round the ear hole.
That's right.
Yeah.
Have you, is there, I mean, I mentioned the other day to Jack about a difference in his disposition, a difference in his outlook, and you'll say it's because he knows he can beat him. Yeah. Right? But there's a much more aggressive Jack. In the first fight, Josh gave him no truck at all. Yeah. You're lucky to be here. You know, I'm giving you an opportunity, and once I've finished with you, that'll be the end of you.
He still thinks like that now.
I don't know if he does now. I mean, Josh talked a different language towards Jack about respecting him. If you beat me, I'll respect you. He had none of that in the first fight.
I think there was a lot more respect this time
around. But I'm more interested in Jack's disposition, and I'll tell you why I'm interested in it. Because there was a sea change in George Groves. I keep using this analysis, it's probably not a fair one, but it's a reasonable one because it's the nature of the domestic fight and the engagement. There was a sea change in George Groves' attitude between the first fight and the second fight. Yeah. Right? And my concern is that Jack did everything right for the first fight. Yeah. Right? Everything right. Yeah. From the manner in which he kept himself in check to the manner in which when it all counted when the first bell rang. Yeah. He didn't waste any emotional energy. He didn't show any cards. He didn't show any. This time round, he's taking a different stance. It's basically, I'm going to retire you. I'm going to smash your face in. And I'm going to retire you. Yeah. And it's a completely different disposition. And I don't know whether it's working and getting in Josh's head. Possibly it is. But is that a concerted plan to do that? Or is this just a different Jack Catterall? Or was that the Jack Catterall first time round, but he wasn't familiar with being at the top table?
I think Jack is in a position where, believe me, and I'm not just saying this for cameras, I've worked with a lot of, Joe Joyce being a laid-back person. But there has a switch, but same with Jack. Jack is the most laid-back person. Believe me, do you know after they were having a push and a pull, and they were giving them a slap on the train home, you ask Anthony, he was...
chilled out.
You've never met him more chilled out. He's got a job to do, right? And he understands that Josh Taylor, when he says, Josh, I'm going to retire, he's planning for the best Josh Taylor. Genuinely, I know people always say that, but you have to plan. You can't be complacent in this fight. It's the biggest fight of your life, and it's a must-win fight. And he's aware of that. He'll be Jack Catterall, but I think Jack feels genuinely that he will get him out of there this time.
Do you think we made the point, didn't we, before the first fight, that we thought there were levels in this fight, and Josh Taylor was a level above Jack Catterall, and that didn't show in the fight at all. If anything, it was the other way around. Yeah. Right? As a result of that fight, and Josh mocks who Jack has fought since, and he says not particularly impressive in these performances. Do you think, Spence, that Jack Catterall is at world level?
I do think he's at world level, and you're going to ask
Does that
now
mean
why.
If he beats Josh, he goes and wins a world title?
I think that he's world level. I said.
No, but I'm not. I'm extrapolating up.
Yeah, no.
I'm saying if he beats Josh Taylor, does he then go on to win a world title?
If he beats Josh Taylor, then he's got a shot. Definitely got a good shot at winning a world title. The trouble is, you've got in that division, you've got like your Devin Haney's, you've got your Regis Prograis, who Devin just beat, and you've got like other top fighters in that division. It's a difficult division right now, to win a world title. But I think that if he comes through Josh Taylor, the answer is yeah. I think he can win a world title. I really do.
Styles make fights in all things. I think someone like Lopez made for Jack.
Absolutely.
Made for him.
Yeah.
Regis Prograis has got, listen, I really like Regis Prograis, I don't speak out. But Joe, when I said when Devin Haney got that fight, I was annoyed because I wanted Jack to get that fight. Yeah. And I believe Jack deserved that fight, just coming off the back of what he had done. And I'm not saying he would have lit him up like Devin Haney. Jack Catterall has the style to do exactly the same thing as what Devin Haney done to Regis Prograis. So yes, I do.
Catterall's got, he's got a nice fluidity about his work. He punches when the opponent punches, and that's how he beat Josh Taylor last time. Josh Taylor was surprised because when Josh was on the attack and he was letting the shots go and putting the shots together in bunches, Catterall was meeting him with the shot as well and throwing at the same time. Timing was perfect. He's a very difficult guy to beat, Jack Catterall, because of his, his rhythm. He gets into a rhythm. He's, very consistent about what he does. He's got a high work rate and he's got balls as well. He'll sit in the pocket and he'll take those chances.
But he caught everyone by surprise. You didn't think that before he fought Taylor?
Not many people did. In the boxing world, Jack
no way
I
give him a chance. I never give him a chance in that fight against Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor at the time was a pound for pound star.
But you only give Jack, in fairness to the conversation, Spence, to put you on the spot, you only give him a chance in this fight because of the weight now. You still... No.
Hang
on. If I'm not... Hang on. Let me go back to what we said. Yeah. Right. You picked this fight at 147, Josh Taylor.
Yes, so
it's about the weight then, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
Because this is his weight division. Yeah. What I'm saying is Josh Taylor has outgrown this weight division. I don't care what anyone says. Don't care even if Josh says it or his team. I think 140, Josh Taylor is outgrown that weight division.
If you're wrong, by your logic, if you're wrong, and the last two performances against Jack and Teofimo Lopez. Yeah. Ironically, Josh has admitted or suggested that he got both of those weight, because I said to him, you can't fight 140 anymore, it's a struggle for you. Yes, I can, I'm comfortable with it. You've only taken this fight because it gives you an opportunity to potentially use it as an excuse because you can't weight this. No, I want this fight at 140. Okay, fine. But again, I make the point. But his argument was that I can make this weight and I got it wrong for the last two fights. Sam has just said that Josh says he's in the best condition for the 140 against Teofimo Lopez.
Listen, do you know what it is? To give you another example, is that who's the last person to know that the fight is left him, the fight is over, like he's finished? What I'm saying is a fight.
But we're not saying that. We're saying the weight class is a problem for him.
He's doing the same thing with this weight. Like he's in denial himself, saying, "Yeah, no, I can make it. I've got the weights wrong this time." It's like a fighter saying when his career's over, when he has his last two fights, he boxes really badly. He goes, "No, I've still got it. I want to do it again." For me, he says, "Look, I got the weight wrong."
Well, let me ask you.
He's also looking at 147.
Yeah.
Say he beat Lopez, he can move up to 147 and think, right, I want to crack at all of
straight in the mix.
Are you seeing any difference in Josh in the preparation for this fight? Because I was surprised at how placid. Josh was quite clever in the interview that he did with myself and Jim, because he was having none of the, try and throw down a gauntlet, and he was basically, if you think I lost the fight, you think I lost the fight. Whereas 6 months ago he'd have been spitting tacks at that.
I think he's been having a few chats with a few people on how to
manage it.
How to manage it, because believe me, when the cameras went off, I got a glimpse. I got it out of him because I was trying to get it out of him. In Edinburgh. I was trying to wind him up. And when I saw him in the dissociator, he was like, if the cameras were in here, I'd strangle it. And I went, there he is. He gets called Hank. The split personality, myself. And I went, there he is.
Me, myself, and Irene.
I've been looking for you. I've been looking for you, Josh. I've got you here. I've caught you in the net. And he was laughing because it's the truth. He's got it in him.
Well, he recognises also, I think, that like
the
public perception of him when he's going like that and saying, I won that fight. I go, I'm an ex-fighter, right? I know when you win fights and when you lose a fight or when a fight is close. He lost that fight by 9 rounds to 3. He will know himself that he lost that fight. Whatever he says,
he's taking it to the grave with him, though, isn't he?
Yeah, because he has to, Sam. Because he made his bed, so he has to lie in it. You know what I'm saying? Like he said it, and he went strong on it. There was a change on the show last Thursday. I thought that I went, that's the approach that you should have taken, and the public perception, they wouldn't have turned against you.
Yeah, that's the benefit of hindsight, though.
Yeah, genuinely, when I mean this, when I say all the shenanigans and stuff, and me winding him up and stuff, I don't want a fighter like Josh, because bear in mind, I paid for tickets to watch Josh Taylor. Not that I want credit for that, by the way. I paid to watch Josh Taylor. I'm a real fan.
It's a great fight.
I don't want him to like go through his you robbed Jack Catterall. He shouldn't be known for that guy.
I totally agree.
He should not be known for, and Jack shouldn't be that guy when he's taking his daughter shopping. Right. Oh, you got robbed. This is why this fight needs to happen, because Josh doesn't need to be remembered for that, because I think he's the greatest Scottish fighter of all time. I know there's probably some will say Ken Buchanan. I think Josh is the greatest Scottish fighter of all time and one of the best Brits.
I agree.
I just think Jack Catterall has his number, gonna whoop him.
Interesting fight, great fight.
Do you think? I don't think Jack knocks him out though.
I think he stops him, Simon.
Do you?
Yeah, and I couldn't care less how he wins, by the way.
As long as he wins.
Yeah. But I just want it to be
a clear win.
He'll probably not. It'll probably be a close fight.
Do you know what?
Clear win.
I see this fight being a lot closer than the first one. The wrong person got the result last time. I think that Catterall was a clear winner. A clear winner. This one will be closer, but I think the right man will get his hand raised, and he'll right.
If you're wrong, Spence, and Josh is comfortable at the weight. Right, which is your main argument, right? But for whatever reason, changes the narrative on the last two fights, and is comfortable at the weight. And he's not trained. You still going to go with Jack?
Yeah. It was too conclusive last
No,
time, Simon. Styles make fights because A, B, C doesn't beat B.
I get it. I get it. But
Styles make fights, and I think that Catterall has his number.
Yeah, people work one another out, though, don't they?
Yeah.
But I'm a major advocate for Jack having got this fight and having got the right to have this fight, and wanted it from the get-go, and was a very vociferous noise about it, and in the same way that I was upset with what happened to Bradley Skeet and other things, I made as much attention about it as I possibly could. I think if Josh Taylor is anywhere near what Josh Taylor was in previous incarnations, I think he'll beat Jack. If he's not, then I think Jack will beat him.
But we're talking about like Jose Carlos Ramirez. When you go looking at that, you go career best performance. You go, you're going back now to like say, what is it, 2021 or something?
Josh's best performance was Ramirez in COVID.
Yeah, but when was that? 2021.
Yeah.
2021. What I'm saying is we're now in 2024. And it's, mate, this weight thing is a big thing.
We're going to say,
he's either on the decline or struggling with the weight.
There's a part of me that that just believes that Josh Taylor will win this. There's a part of me that works out looking at Josh, but the evidence may well be in front of my own eyes, and I'm denying the existence of it, which is the last two fights are the compelling ones. Because I would, as I said to him,
he's been saying he's been injured, nothing to do with the weight. Josh said, I was struggling with an injury. He didn't say, to be fair to me, he didn't make excuses after the TFE, but he said that he was struggling with I think it was a leg injury or something. That's the reason why.
Well, either which way, I think we're going to see a pretty intriguing fight and a huge atmosphere, and that's
it's going to be electric.
And that's what British boxing brings best. But I want to segue into British boxing and what's going on now. I wanted to see how you boys saw the landscape, because if you look at what we are, there's a lot of noise around the British boxing world and a lot of things going on, but we only have 3 world champions. Whereas 8 years ago, we had 8. Oh no, actually, there were 13 8 years ago. 13 world champions. So what's that telling us about the British? I mean, we're making great domestic fights. Eubank versus Liam Smith, Fabio Wardley versus Fraser Clark. Great little fights, right? But we're not seeing ourselves at the elite end of the sport winning world titles.
Yeah, but I don't think the standard has dropped at all. I just think it's just the circle of the way that it works. I think if you look at what the prospects that we've got coming through, like young Moses and Tama, and you look at
Adam
Azim, Dennis McCann, like Liam Davis,
Ben Whittaker.
That's what I'm saying. That look at what's coming through, and we'll probably in 12 months, 18 months time, we could be having a conversation.
The landscape will look different. I think it's just more not coincidental.
I think boxing in this country right now is very, very healthy. Like the standard of boxing in this country is very, very healthy. You look at what's going on in the amateur gyms, and you look at the kids that are coming through. We're in a good spot right now.
I do. I think that, do you know domestic fights? I love domestic fights.
Me too.
I love them, right? Yeah. And I look at fights like, we've mentioned Catterall, Wardley Clark. I love that fight. I want to potentially try and go to that fight. Great fight. We need to see more. Azim against Smith.
Yeah.
Great fight.
These fights have to happen. And I think when Eddie talks about that being pressed on it, he wants probably someone to speak to Ben and say, look, Are you gonna, because Fraser Clark was pulled out of the last purse bid for Fabio Warner. And what I would say about that is, just quickly, say if Fraser lost, that is the interim fight that he had before that fight. I'm not saying he would have done, because Fraser's a great fighter, but if he did, it cost him a fortune. Fights don't need overcooking him. Oh, Azim against Dalton Smith, it's not the excuse, but like it
doesn't need a world title fight on there for them to, because the loser comes back off that fight anyway.
I mean, in fairness to Fraser Clark, I mean, it was about giving him a few more rounds, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and getting a little bit more experience.
6 fights at
Fraser
the time.
Fraser didn't want to do that. Trust me, he wanted to do that fight. Trust me, he wanted to do that fight on that.
But I think from a business point of view, I think it was a good move, because Fraser Clark
it looks it off for now, for sure, with how it's turned out now. But I'm saying, like, with the Azim Smith, like, we will get behind fights like this, like, and also whoever loses, like you say, it doesn't matter.
They're young kids, they come back.
Yeah. Look at the Gross against the Gale.
Listen, every great fighter has the exception of 1 or 2.
They lose.
I was thinking about Floyd Mayweather and Rocky Marciano.
They lose.
Exception of those, you go, every great fighter is how they come back. That is that sort of part of the development of them. You know, that makes a fighter better.
It's down as well. Promoters working together, and I know, with Saudi coming into boxing, it's helped. Listen, make no mistake, of course it's money. Like with Frank and Eddie, that they've kind of decided, right, now's the time. And George Warren's been instrumental in that, by the way, almost a sensible one. Yeah. George, where he's kind of like, right, come on, let's just do business now. This is ridiculous. All this tit for tat, it doesn't help anyone. I would like to see Ben and Sky come into that kind of mix and kind of do it and kind of join that mix of making the fights. Look at the fight with who's the British champion?
Sky's
they are going to.
I know they are, but also they haven't mentioned the Taylor Catterall fight once. I'm not really. I know Eddie's mentioned about it. I'm personally not bothered, because look how well it's sold. He doesn't really need that. But I think Eddie's what Eddie was
by design.
Yeah, what Eddie was upset about when he was involved in Sky, they covered everything, and now there's a different organisation in charge. They don't really cover other situations. Like Taylor Catterall, it's the biggest domestic fight of the year. Fact, right? Been no coverage of it. And I just think if everyone worked together, like, so Frank Warren working with Ben working with Eddie, we will make the best fights. It'll be the best time. We're on the verge of that with Frank and Eddie.
Well, the only reason,
Ben to come into the mix.
That's great, Sam. But the only reason that's working is because the economics are being taken away from the promoters. They don't have to put. So unless you're gonna turn that into a global event, in which terms every single fight is going to be financed by the Saudis, you're still going to have the same situations, which is the loyalties between one broadcaster and another.
Eddie and Frank are now kind of like thinking to themselves, oh, let's do a 5-on-5 in the UK. That I know that's being spoken about, and I just think. But my argument is, I love the Azim Dalton Smith fight. I really, because I just think the styles are great. And Adam Azim, by the way, I'm a massive fan. I think he's a brilliant talent, a really, really good talent that could be super special. You can't call out, who did you call it? Keyshawn Davis at Wembley, but the Dalton Smith. And it doesn't matter. If you beat Dalton Smith, you're a superstar. Dalton Smith beats her, he's a superstar. But guess what? You can come back.
Absolutely.
There's a way back. Adam Azim, even if he lost to Dalton Smith, he can still go and be a superstar, because he's got all the ability to do it. Good coach, good team around him, great platform.
It'll be interesting. I mean, so are you for that? I mean, it'll be interesting to see the dynamics of this Saudi influence, because let's be clear. I mean, the only reason that they're on the table together is because the financial side of things has been covered by the Saudis.
Just quickly, Simon, just going back on something you just said about the Saudis and their investment in boxing and buying DAZN. Is that something that you've heard? Because
I think that's a fit that could make sense.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, the primary broadcaster is Sky. Ben Shalom has that relationship. I'm not entirely sure that Eddie and Frank are welcoming Ben into the fold in terms of where that might land. I don't know if I would if I was in their shoes. They want to control the direction of travel. Would you?
Sure.
Ultimately, you've got Frank Warren that's orchestrated this situation, George Warren that's run the groove and produced the outcomes with the various people in Saudi Arabia to get them to a point there where the ridiculed Ngannou Tyson Fury fight was the gateway that Frank talks about, and off the back of that we've got the fighters on the same card, not in the order that we want them in, but on the same card. Now the promoters on the same table.
Still a crazy time in boxing, though.
Yeah, it is.
Changing at the times.
Who did we ever think, though? Do you know when we saw Frank on the Zone broadcast and Eddie on the TNT broadcast? It was like, oh my gosh, I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime.
Sam, like when you've got different broadcasters like DAZN, TNT, and you've got Sky and everything else, it's the politics of the sport that don't get these fights over the line, because you're talking about pay-per-view cuts and where the fight
they've took the politics away.
They've taken it away.
They basically said, listen, you have your fights, he has your fights. This is where it's happening.
Absolutely.
And basically, this is that piece, that's that piece. We want them to. I think it's great for boxing.
It's a changing in the
Well,
times.
I think it's interesting, and I think it'll be, the fact that we've now got someone in Saudi that's sort of superseding the sanctioning belts and calling for fights is a bit disconcerting. And I'm not sure what people like Suleiman will make of that.
It's not the worst idea, though, is it? If AJ beats Ngannou, and then we get the winner of. I'd love Tyson Fury to win that fight, by the way, and then we get them 2 fights. I don't care where they fight.
I think that is a when, not an if. I think that happens.
Isn't that a great time though to be alive?
I don't think we would have got the undisputed.
No chance.
Yeah.
I mean, if the economy,
it's very hard to explain to people about the money though with boxing. Sorry, Sam, it's very hard to explain to somebody. Like, say if someone asked me, like, I don't know, my dad, for example, AJ against Fury should happen in Wembley. But then you're saying to that 2 people who are now used to make it. I personally don't think, whether it's a bad thing, I don't think we'll ever see Tyson and AJ in a British ring ever again. I don't. With the age they're at now.
That's only because, with due respect, that we've reached a point where there's an expectation of what should be paid and what shouldn't be paid. And when the original Joshua Fury fight was being announced, and it was 150 million, when did it become everyone's responsibility? I know that these fighters put their lives on the line. I know that they're prize fighters. I know it's about the economics. But the reasons why it can't happen is because someone got into the idea that everyone had to be paid 50, 60 million pound per fight. Now, that may well be reflective of what happened with Mike Tyson when he signed his deals back in the day with HBO or whoever he was with, Showtime. And that was the kind of scale that he was at in a global marketplace or in a US marketplace that has far bigger currency. I just think the balance got to be, between it being all about money at the same time as it being all about the value of the sports. And I'm always slightly reluctant, and I don't really care if it makes me unpopular with the Saudis about their agenda, what they're utilising it for, and what happens to the sport when they decide they don't need it anymore. And that's always a thought process.
Do you think that that's something that, because I think that the investment there, I think they're in for the long term. The Saudis.
Chump change to them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that.
They're sitting on lakes and lakes and lakes and lakes and lakes and lakes of oil. Their agenda with the Saudis is, like anything else, it's a landscape. It's sport. It's part of their culture. But it's also about creating other opportunities for themselves in commercial worlds, opening doors that they wouldn't necessarily get access to. A level of image laundering. They don't like it, and I get vilified for saying it. And at that point, does it continue to be about the sport, or does it continue to be about their agenda?
Well, listen, I think that when we look at those, Simon, I think that
we just have to enjoy it anyway.
Sports fans are the winners, whatever it is.
That's
and I think that's a fair.
And I do think sometimes you forget. It should be.
You would never be.
Hold on a minute, guys. Look what's
happening.
Sam,
we would have been having these conversations, and I think that we do get AJ. I think we do get AJ and Fury in the same ring at some point. We're getting now Fury, Usyk, and everything else, and then you just look at it and you go, in this era, with what was on the table, we would never have seen these fights.
So we have to enjoy it. So even if you're right, Simon, that's the case.
No, I think you're right.
Let's enjoy it while this is happening. But I agree with Spence. I don't think, even though it's like what you say, Sam, chump change to them. I think they're in it for the long run. I think Turkey Al Sheikh being a boxing fan helps massively.
If it is indeed we're getting the best fights being made and the sport's advancing, then the Saudis have every right to be at the table. They have every right to be in the same way that Vegas had an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's their right.
It's the home of boxing now, isn't it, for the big fight nights?
But, I do have to push back on the notion that all these wonderful fights are being made because of the promoters' endeavours, because it's quite easy to make fights when you've got someone behind you going, and you want how much? Yeah. And how much would you like? And how much would you like?
I think there is a bit more method to it, because Taylor Catterall, by the way, Simon, Taylor Catterall was potentially heading over there. Genuinely, at one point.
Yeah.
But
so you didn't do your job by the fighters at all, did you?
Nah, but
you let them down, Sam.
The money was similar. The money was very similar.
Oh,
Sam.
really?
The money was very similar.
Oh, really?
Don't start me on that one. But I tell you what though, with that now, I do think some fights We have to keep the Warden
So do I.
Clarks,
Yeah, but
Taylor
I think, that's what I'm
Catterall.
saying. I think we get those. I think what it is I think people struggle with change, and we have got to accept that it is a changing.
The only thing I worry about is that if it raises the expectation of fighters, and all of a sudden fights don't get made because unless they're
waiting
fighting
for Saudi money.
I'm not only going to fight in Saudi because I'll only get the money in Saudi, and all of a sudden you've got a landscape that's been
You have to change with the times, though, Simon. You have to change with the
Well,
times.
you
If
may
Saudi
well-
would say, potentially, if Saudi remove, which I don't think they will, and I think they're great for boxing, but if they did decide to move, then okay, don't fight.
But we all know.
Go sit in the corner and
we
don't
all
fight.
know. Yeah,
that's right.
but that's the world that we've lived in. We all know that fights haven't happened because the economics haven't been there, and now the economics are there. And when the economics don't suit, when it doesn't suit them, and we don't particularly want that fight. All of a sudden, the fighters have got it in their heads that they should be having this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And then they can't get it because the Saudis
Yeah,
don't
but
fancy that
on the
fight.
flip side, they might be saying, "Listen, I've got to go through this fight because I want to get that Saudi money. I want to
Yeah.
be taken over there." So there is an
The
argument
bottom line
against
is
that.
Frank's worked the oracle.
Yeah.
Eddie's jumped on the bandwagon, and I'm sure Ben will jump on it as well because ultimately Sky are the blue chip blue chip. Yeah, and everyone gets to make their fights. And if we take some, if we get rid of some of the nonsense.
Listen,
I don't
yeah.
care.
Listen,
I don't
mate, and
care.
you never know. talkSPORT might be back there as
There
well.
you go. Lucky us.
I've
There we
got a
go.
word in for you.
What about AJ Ngannou? Whereabouts? Where are you on this fight?
When Tyson, and bear in mind, I don't want to be that guy that says, "Oh, Tyson," but I've known Tyson a very long time. I wanted Tyson to fight Usyk, AJ. I wasn't a big fan of the whole Ngannou situation because I thought, if he'd boxed Usyk and then he just thought, you know what, I'll nip to Saudi, earn a few quid, box Ngannou as a showcase kind of fight, no problem. But I thought right at that time, I thought everyone wanted the undisputed fight, and I thought it was the wrong thing. Or ultimately, when it happened, look, we was all shocked to death. And now, because of that situation, the fight against AJ is like, I still think AJ's massive favourite in the fight, and I think he stops Ngannou. I do. I think he stops him.
It's made it an interesting fight.
It's made a random sportsman think he put
Do you know
Tyson
what?
Bugger for. He could have won. He's going to beat AJ. It makes it intriguing.
The chaos of that fight
Yeah.
with Tyson Fury
Sold this
created
one.
the opportunity
Absolutely.
for Joshua. So I think it's a win-win.
Yeah,
I mean,
me
it's
too.
great.
Me too. He's making a bucket load of money.
Yeah.
And His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh said, if you win this fight, here you go. You're fighting the winner here. Oh, it's amazing. What a time to be a boxing fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm not a fan of the fight, and I think it's slightly embarrassing for the sport that the two elite
you know
heavyweight
when people
champions.
say about he's a novice, he's a one-fight novice. That I just go, look, don't.
I've seen him spar, you know, like he's a big, strong lump.
But he's been boxing a long time. Right? Yes, he's had that one fight, but the guy knows how to fight.
He's got a chin like a bag
whenever
of cement.
Tyson Fury
But
turns up-
nobody disputes that. Nobody disputes that he knows how to fight. But let's have it right.
Yeah, but you can't get-
Every one of you lot sat there
No,
going,
he shouldn't be living with Tyson
He
Fury.
had,
He
listen,
shouldn't be
he
living
had
with
the
him.
WBC champ on the seat of his pants.
Oh,
yeah?
for sure.
The guy can fight. You got to show him respect for that, and that's why it makes it.
But what it
interesting.
is, I mean, ultimately, His Excellency has created a new gig, a new opportunity. And
You just won yourself a new gig.
Oh, don't think so.
Yeah.
And I think that Anthony. I mean, I think it's a poor advertisement for boxing. I think that the lineal heavyweight champion in the world and the former two-time heavyweight champion in the world fighting, not just a.
Watch it be a barnstormer now.
Well,
It will be, mate.
but
I think it will.
fighting not only a fighter from a different discipline, someone that hasn't fought for 18 months, and someone that's had a knee rebuild, right? And all of those get dropped in the equation because what we're watching is a show that's surrounding with lots and lots of money. But listen, fair play to them.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Last one for you, Sam, before we go. We've kicked around relentlessly the likely outcome for the undisputed.
Yeah.
You just said a moment ago that you'd like to see Fury win. That's probably because you'd like to see him fight all the fighters that ultimately you'd think that he would want to fight and should fight, given the fact that he is possibly the best heavyweight of his generation. How do you see the undisputed?
With the time I've spent around Tyson Fury, I can say, for me, on form, firing on all cylinders, he's the best heavyweight in the world. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. I've seen him spar pretty much everyone, videos of him sparring everyone. Believe me, when that big guy is on it, and when his brain is on something, I don't think anyone. I think all the other heavyweights are here, and Tyson's just there on his own. I think he had the worst night of his life against Ngannou. I think he was. I don't know what he was doing. I'm not saying he didn't train, but I think he must have just looked at him and thought, MMA fighter, I'll slap him silly.
No fear factor.
No fear factor. I'm going to go in there, and he had the worst night of his life. I genuinely believe that, and I think he beats Usyk. I really do, and I think he smashes him as well. To be honest.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I could be horribly wrong.
That's a unanimous decision here because me and Simon think the same as well.
And also, I'm a fanboy, and I want to see AJ against Tyson Fury. It's massive. It's the biggest fight ever. So that's the reason. That's one of the reasons.
Who wins that fight? AJ Fury.
Again, if Tyson Fury scrapes through the Usyk fight and he looks not great, AJ's looking like he's rediscovered his form. AJ could. Some people. It's a pick'em fight. It's a pick'em fight. But like what I just said there, I can't change my opinion. I'm a big AJ fan. Big AJ fan. But I do think Tyson Fury is just here, and all the other heavyweights are. The pack are just below.
That's what we think.
Just when he's on it. Look at that performance against Ngannou, and I kind of think to myself, right, that's not the Tyson Fury I've kind of grown up around.
That's also the byproduct of him fighting Derek Chisora and Dillian Whyte and being on a different level to those two fighters, and then going in against Ngannou and underestimating the opposition. It's a combination of all of those things.
And he deserves credit as well, Tyson, because he never threw anyone under the bus after the fight. He could have said, oh, my strength coach got this wrong, my dietitian wasn't there, that my trainer didn't come.
But he'd have been laughed at every day.
No, I understand that, but he just kind of thought, Joe, I'll take it on the chin. I was not very good, and Ngannou.
Do you think if Tyson wins, he'll become more pleasant than he's been recently?
Maybe, because Tyson doesn't, listen, whatever Tyson, he doesn't, nobody likes criticism, but Tyson, to his credit, you look at the performances against Wilder, the amazing performances. Because everyone at the time, everyone thinks Wilder's useless now. But do you know when Wilder was knocking people unconscious, making them shake on the floor? Tyson went in there after coming off the back of 40 stone and beating him up, won the first time. And then
it wasn't 40 stone, was it?
Then he was a big lad,
I don't
Simon.
think that people think that Wilder is now useless. I think what people now think with Wilder is
Tyson took his soul a bit.
Them 3 fights took a lot out of him.
Yeah.
And the big question mark is, did those 3 fights take a lot out of Tyson Fury? Because look, you look at the performances against Dillian Whyte and whatnot, dominant performance, that's great, but the one against Ngannou, it raises the question,
from
which
what I've heard about him in sparring, from what I've heard about him in sparring, he's back. He's back.
Yeah,
Tyson.
no, that's what I'm saying. But we're entitled as an outlet, or as everyone's got an opinion where you're entitled to go, are the wheels starting to come off? Is he slowing down? Is he deteriorating?
Oh, you have to ask these questions.
Absolutely, but
you have to ask these questions.
Then you can't. We're not becoming haters then because we're saying that.
Let's not go back round to that circle. We've done that.
I tell you what, go and have it. You need to get hold of Tyson Fury. You do, and have a sit down with it. And believe me, he'll give you a sensible conversation. Because Tyson, I know, probably doesn't watch all these interviews. He's probably told things.
No,
he's probably told about 30 seconds of interview.
But he should do
Simon
better.
Jordan said this. Spencer
I've
said this, and he gets
seen
wound
interviews.
up.
The only thing I would say on that subject matter is that what Tyson Fury said to me about 18 months ago, the thing I like about you is if I do something wrong, you'll tell me. Right? So I told him, and now he's sulky. What can you do with that? There you go.
But the thing is, Tyson will wake up one day.
Of course he will.
And he'll say, talkSPORT's banned. Yeah. And then the next day he'll think, why is talkSPORT banned? Because that's how he is.
Listen,
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It is what it is.
Off the blacklist soon. Don't worry.
It doesn't worry me in the slightest. I couldn't care less. There's other people that could. Anyway, right. That's it for this episode from Spencer and the somewhat subdued Sam Jones.
Subdued Sam Jones. I like that one.
Nice to see you, Sam. Well done.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Spence, see you next time out.
Look forward to it, Simon.